Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the userexperience.org podcast. Today on the show, we have Colton Schweitzer, co-founder of kickassux.com, a forum community to start or boost your career in UX. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, cool. Now you
It's
have
like
something to match it to.
yeah, nice.
Yeah.
All right,
Well, nice to meet you,
cool.
man. I'd
Yeah,
love to hear more about
same.
userexperience.org and what you're doing with that. Like,
Yeah,
what are your goals?
sounds good. Maybe first let me just say hi to everybody who's listening in. Welcome back to another episode of the userexperience.org podcast. Today with us, we have Colton. I want to try your last name and we'll see if it works. Colton Schweitzer.
That's the very
Yes.
German way of saying it, which is correct. Yeah, Schweitzer.
I would Schweitzer. Because I'm
Yeah.
guessing then you're originally from Germany then.
Yeah, my dad's side of the family is well, in German, Die Schweiz is Switzerland, and so Schweitzer literally means person from Switzerland, which I think is really funny. And so I don't know if that's actually true or not. I haven't done
Yeah.
genealogy stuff at all, so couldn't tell you, but at least half
Okay.
of my family is German.
Nice. Yeah. But yeah, I'll also briefly introduce yourself, you as well, and then you can always kind of correct me. But today, Colton, he markets himself as a design partner for early stage through Series C startups, and as well as a bunch of experience in UX. I took a quick look at your LinkedIn. You worked at Smartsheet, if I see correctly, which I'm guessing is some sort of spreadsheet software, but you can correct me later. Also, the owner of Kitty AF, which is a comic thing. I'm guessing it has something to do with cats.
You got that right.
And yeah, also, I guess one of the main reasons I reached out and found you was now you have quite a big presence in the UX community and the UX space as co-founder of Kickass UX, which from the outside seems to be quite successful. Hats off for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything you'd like to add or?
No, I think you nailed it, man. Yeah, that's just about it. I've been like not on LinkedIn, I've been contracting on the side for the last few years, so I've worked with a handful of companies from truly early stage through like roughly Series A or Series B. I have worked with Series C in the past. Like in particular with Smartsheet, they were technically, I think, Series C or actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if they actually ever accepted funding, but they would have been around there because they went public not too long after. But
Right.
but yeah, so kind of worked with the whole gamut. But now in the recent past, myself and Ludovic, my co-founder of Kickass UX, we started our own little design studio called Design Pal. So that's who we're focusing on helping. And yeah, it's great. We only just started it up like in the last 2 weeks, so very
Okay.
recent.
Nice. Well, shout out to that then.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, maybe back to your question, so I can also give you a little bit of context, because for the listeners out there, I just reached out to Colton on LinkedIn and basically told him, hey, click this link to join the podcast. So he doesn't have much of I still have to explain a little bit what the idea behind this is. But basically, I think I started userexperience.org in January. I came across a domain name and I was like, oh my God, this is really a nice domain name. And I was like, well, let me think what I can like put behind that. And then I kind of came basically after graduating from university in economics in Rotterdam, I noticed that it was really hard for me to enter the UX space, having no actual experience other than, a bunch of hobby projects I'd work on for a bit. So yeah, ultimately, like some really crazy like coincidences, I ended up getting a UX job. I was placed there by another company who hired me, who then puts people in companies like a contractor, kind of a consultancy. So maybe they knew I was into UX, or maybe it was just a fluke in the system, but I somehow made it into there. Yeah, and that's kind of what inspired me to start userexperience.org and kind of help people who are in the same boat as me to try to either get more experience in UX or just completely start their career, or maybe do like a career switch or something.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's also how I came across you. I was just kind of looking at exploring, who's already in the space and what are people working on and how are they doing that. And I thought it'd be really cool to just chat and see, hear from you what your insights are, and
Yeah,
also just
absolutely.
hear more about you as a person, and also just how your career has evolved.
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
awesome, man. I really love that. Well, that's super cool that you were able to kind of make your way in. Like it's not easy. And I don't know what the market's like in Europe at all as far as
Yeah.
like how it is, how hard or easy it is to get a UX job, but at least in the US and Canada, from what I'm seeing in Canada, but in the US, it's definitely hard, especially for new people. And so, like, hats off to you. It takes a lot of determination and like just sticking to your guns, just moving forward and like
Yeah.
whatever you can to get experience. So, hell yeah, man. I'm stoked for you that you landed that job.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Before we continue, do you have like a hard stop that I should take into consideration?
45 my time, so 30 minutes from now.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. All right. Um, yeah, I mean, back to your question about how it's in Europe, just from my assumption, I'm assuming that the States and Canada are more developed in that scene. So in the sense that there's more jobs, but at the same time, there's much more people, which means maybe it's like more competitive and harder to get into. But in the Netherlands, like it's still, early stage, it's still growing. So for instance, I was working as a UX experience designer at KLM, and there was just like, I was like, at least in my department, the only one. So I was just kind of freewheeling it and kind of doing what I wanted. Um,
Wow. And now, was that your first UX role?
yeah, that was my first like paid official UX role.
Wow. Well, that had to be intimidating. I can only imagine hopping into a team and having your first UX role and not having someone more senior there to help answer questions, where it feels like you're kind of on your own and like doing stuff. So how did that feel when you were
Yeah.
like doing this up and making like, you know, choices? And this is my cat Murphy. He can't help but open my door and come.
Hey, Murphy.
Um,
I guess it's
but
Murphy's
like,
Law.
yeah, that's actually why we named him Murphy, truly. Because he like as an aside, he like within the first day of us getting him like did like four things where like, he should have gotten really hurt and he didn't. But uh
I
yeah,
guess he
it's
has
just
5 lives left then.
yeah, exactly. But how did that feel when you were making these kind of really big choices that have, ripples across the entire product and you had no one there to back you? What was that like?
Yeah. So I'll give you a little bit more context on the product we were working on as well, and also just where I came from. So before that, I had worked as a product owner at a mortgage technology company. The thing was that I was the junior product owner and I was meant to replace the senior product owner. But I don't know if you know much about the role of product owner, but that's like as senior as you can get, and you need a lot of experience, especially with stakeholder management. So for me, that was really difficult to actually reach his level, and he wasn't the most supportive in that. So once I switched over to KLM and kind of broke free and didn't really have anyone senior to me, it really felt like I was, free to kind of explore and take on responsibility and do things my own way, I guess. So on the one hand, of course, it was a little like confusing, like what am I supposed to do? What's the right answer? But the fact that there was no right answer, at least there was no one to tell me what the right answer was, meant that I guess had more freedom to just explore and make mistakes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really cool, man. And so when you say product owner, I'm assuming you mean also like product manager, same thing, right?
I mean, I'm not sure what the difference is, but
Yeah.
at least at
Pretty sure
that
they're the same
company,
thing.
that company, it was just talking to stakeholders, figuring out what needs to be done, prioritizing that, and then communicating that to the
Yep.
developers.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. When in that role, were you doing UX work?
In that role, I was actually almost not doing anything. That was the issue. That there was the senior product owner, and he was just taking everything on. And the idea was that he would give me tasks, but he never got to like, yeah, teaching me. So that's also, I guess, more broadly an issue in careers in general. Is like if you're trying to learn from people, they have to be open to teaching you, and they have to make that time commitment
Yeah.
to teaching you. So yeah, I guess you have to just create a company culture where part of someone's job is to teach other people and offload tasks. Because, for instance, at KLM, we had this guy and he was brilliant, building like the whole technical product, but he never explained how it worked, like how to build that to other people. So it became a kind of a silo where like every question we had, we'd have to ask him. And then when he's on vacation, it's like, yeah, we don't know how it works.
Wow. Yeah, that's not great.
No.
Yeah, tribal knowledge like that isn't a good thing.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Wow.
but yeah,
Wow. Well,
but I'd love
that's
to hear
awesome.
more.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about you. Like, how did you get started in this whole UX thing?
Well, I got started. Oh, I got into it by accident. I came out of college and like was in a dead end job. Was going nowhere. I had taught myself graphic design stuff, had done website stuff, but
Hmm.
didn't realize that UX was a thing. And then I built a board game because I thought it'd be really fun, and I saw like Exploding Kittens doing really well, and I saw Cards Against Humanity doing really well, and I was like, well, I could do that because I also love board games, and so I built a board game called Son of a Blank, and I followed the UX process to do so, and in following that, I realized, oh my God, this is awesome. And then a friend of mine actually was a UX designer, and he said, oh, that's UX. I was like, what
Yeah.
the hell is that? So I was like,
And
how can
how
I
old
keep
were you when this happened?
I was just out of college. So this is 2013, 2014 was really the start of that. Well, end of 2013, 2014. So at that time, I would have been 23, 20, yeah, 23, 24, depending on where it was, somewhere in there. So right out of college. Yeah, like I loved it. I was like, can I keep doing this? So I did as much research as I possibly could to figure out what I needed to do. And at that
Hmm.
time, I really believed that you had to have a certificate or a diploma or something that like, that said, hey. And so I went and I did a boot camp after that. Like I had a decent experience overall, but the problem was they didn't really prepare you for how it's really like. And I didn't get any callbacks after finishing the boot camp until I added my board game to my case studies and showed how I followed the UX process. Because eventually I sold that game on Amazon and sold out. So I was able to show that in my case studies that like this was like a
How
monetary
many
thing.
people bought it?
I had 1,600 games produced. There were 1,600 games sold. I couldn't tell you how many. Like it's been a little while since cause I didn't do it after that point. So 1,600 games sold. I think I know of at least a few people that are friends that bought multiple copies and gave them to other friends. And so like I know like I know that was happening, so I couldn't tell you the number of people who actually bought. But yeah, point is that like it took me a lot more effort and more expertise and knowledge to get into UX than just was taught in the boot camp. And then like the majority of people, well, let's say like half of the people in my boot camp, and this is in 2015, like didn't get a UX job. And like even though they were promising like 92% at the time, 92% like job placement, and that just didn't happen. Like their numbers tanked after us. And so I just like I saw that was a problem. And then I after landing a job, I kept getting approached by people who were in boot camps, and they were like, "How did you do it?" And I also got approached by people who are just graphic designers or just other people asking how to get into UX. So basically I did that. I stayed in my role in the corporate world for a while, and then I met Ludovic, and then he and I decided, like he and I both were thinking about trying to tackle that problem because we both kept getting approached by people, and that's when we started Kickass UX.
Okay, nice. And what was that like the first couple of months when you started Kickass UX?
Well, we started writing. Well, it's like 2019 that we like in February that we realized we're going to do this, and so it wasn't until like I don't know, July, August that year that he and I started writing just a ton of scripts. And so, like because for our course, we followed the UX process to get there. So like we went and we interviewed a bunch of people. We talked to people who went to other boot camps and universities, like what went well, what didn't go so well, like what they need to do better, like a bunch of different questions like that. And I think before we actually built anything, we had already interviewed like 50 people. And so then by the time that we did launch something, we had around 80 or 90 lessons. At this point, we have like 130, 140 lessons in our program that are like pre-recorded. You watch them, and then we have biweekly calls with our students. But
And when you say a lesson, is that like a course or is it more just like a 15-minute like highlight or like explanation? Like is
so
a lesson
basically, like
part of a course?
yeah, so it's part of a course. So our program is called UX UI Expert, and how it works is you hop in, you choose case studies that'll actually help you stand out because you're solving real problems for real businesses or real companies and real users. So you start off by doing that versus what most boot camps and courses have you do, which is to have you pick some BS fake case study, or they'll give it to you, and then like it's not going to help you stand out. And so we start by doing that, and then we walk you through the full UX process. So we have a lesson for basically every method that you might be using. And then initially, the very first case study they do is linear because you have to figure out, like why would I use user interviews? Like why would I do that? Why would I use a survey? Why would I do X, Y, and Z? Like what kind of information do I get from that? So you have to kind of do that once linearly to understand it, and then the next time around they pick and choose which ones they want to use, which methods that make sense for the project they're on. And so, but yes, it's part of like this. It's a program that like we have that has like 130 plus lessons, and it takes them through that entire process. It also has a bunch of lessons for building your portfolio and like how you network and how you actually do that successfully. So like basically, it's start to finish what you need to know to land a job in UX, and then you get time with us every 2 weeks, and we answer all questions and comments in our community. So yes, that is how it works. Initially, it's not how it worked. We had all the most of the lessons that we do now, but we had it as a cohort model. So students would join us, and we would go through together for like 6 months, and then we changed that not too long back to being more of like a you join whenever, and like we'll help you wherever you are in your process.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah, I think what definitely stands out, I mean, maybe a little bit of context, but after I had graduated from university, I was considering doing a coding boot camp. So not necessarily a UX boot camp, but a coding boot camp. And I was about to join, but then my parents were like, I don't think we're going to put that much money up for something that they didn't really believe in.
Sure.
But I ended up actually writing my bachelor's thesis on the effectiveness of boot camps in general. So I scraped 500 profiles on LinkedIn and kind of saw how much percent of those people actually ended up getting a job. And I was also kind of looking at maybe bias in the market. So like, do people from a minority race, or maybe do females, or maybe even intersectional bias, are they kind of discriminated and stuff? I didn't find any, statistically conclusive results, but it was definitely interesting to get into.
Yeah.
But diving back to what you were saying, yeah, I think definitely the main point of value is doing those real case studies. So, I mean, just like for you, once you put that kitty, or once you put that a board game up, that's how people were like, oh, this guy is actually legit. He knows what he's doing, or at least he's like got his hands dirty. So how do you get those real case studies? Do you just approach companies and tell them, hey guys, what do you want us to work on, or how does that go?
Yeah. So it's up to our students. We walk them through a bunch of different ways to get case studies. So like the easiest way to do it without approaching a company, but still tackling a real problem for
Mm-hmm.
a company or users, is you pick a company that you know, or like, well, actually it starts, we have a free course on picking case studies, by the way. You can go to our website, kickassux.com. There's a button in the top right saying pick UX case studies. And it's a free course with like, it's an hour of content, I think, about how you actually pick these case studies. So like generally what we have our students do is think about what industry or company types they want to work for. So that way they can actually go and solve problems for companies that they'd actually want to work for in the long run. So, for example, we've had students who wanted to work in the food industry, or like as in food tech, because they're just very interested in that. Or we've had people who wanted to work in Web3 stuff. And so basically they first choose what they want to do, the top of the funnel, like what area do I want to focus on? And then they go find companies in that area and look for problems that they're having. And like, so let's say, you go and look at some crypto company in Web3, and you realize that they don't have a very good process for doing X, like the usability of this thing is terrible. Or like you go and look at the reviews, like where are the problems at that are actually solvable through UX means. And basically you go and you pick a problem for them that can be solved through the UX side of things, not just coding back-end stuff. And you go and solve that problem. You treat it as if you work at that company, and you go and do that thing. And the reason that you actually start first with what industry you want to work for and what company type is one of the things that we've noticed in the last few years is that a lot of companies are choosing candidates. Like when there's so many candidates coming in, they're choosing candidates that have pre-existing knowledge in that domain. So like if I'm applying to a job that has to do with fintech, for example, I don't have any experience with fintech companies. I have a lot of experience with like not product management, but work management type companies, or like building apps, or I have some small amount with like healthcare. And so like I could go very easily approach those types of companies and show what I can do, but I'd struggle to show the fintech side of things. Whereas a person with equal amount of experience to me would probably get the job over me because they have pre-existing domain knowledge within the fintech space that then would push them that much further above. And we've seen that with hiring managers over and over. So to whatever extent that's why we teach our students to like really pick that domain first where they want to work, and then start building up knowledge in that domain. So that way they can actually go and show that in their case study by, like, hey, I did this thing. This is what I learned. and so on and so forth. So that's what we have our students do. And like so far it's been working out pretty well, like especially with the market the way it is. We've had students landing jobs. It's not like always. The one thing that we have defined especially is like a win for our students is like if they land a UX job, great. If they get a raise in their job, great. Like there's a lot of different ways you can use UX to improve where you're at, and we've seen kind of a lot of different things. Like we've had a bunch of students start their own companies after going through our program because they understand how to apply this to being more of like a design studio or insert like value add here. There's a lot of things that they can do with it now that they're through it. So,
And so I'm hearing like a whole bunch of different value propositions. You've got the whole like community aspect of it, and also, the case studies and stuff. Could you, maybe we're going to go a little meta right now, or a little meta, but could you tell me, or could you bring us on a kind of a journey, of how you got to this kind of user experience of Kickass UX? So like, how did it start? How was the product originally? And then, what surprised you? What feedback did you get? And then how did you use that to change your offering?
Yeah, happy to. So, when we first started Kickass UX, we were looking around at boot camps, knowing that they are causing a lot of the problems, and universities for that matter, that they're like they're making a bunch of false promises about landing jobs, like with these job guarantees and, so on and so forth with that stuff. And so, but you look at the price tag, at the time when we started, I want to say Springboard was 7,000, Career Foundry was like 6,500, General Assembly was 12. I think what other ones. Memorize.ly at the time was $2,500 or $3,000. They're all thousands of dollars. And then you're looking at a university price, and that was somewhere between 30 and 90 grand for a 2 to 4 year degree, depending on which ones you're doing. And so what our plan was to match a boot camp as far as, we wanted to be like very hands-on, help students every step of the way. We'd meet every week to make sure there was accountable. And the reason that we decided to go that way, the cohort method, like I forgot, I have to back up before then. We had 10 people go through our program for free before we even launched it. And at that time, it was asynchronous, and they didn't actually meet up with us as a group. And the problem with that is of those 10, only like 3 people actually finished it. Now, part of that was because of those 10, I think 4 or 5 of them wanted to become UX designers. The other 5 just wanted to add it to their skill set. And so there are people who just weren't like super motivated to do it. But of the 5 who actually wanted to get into UX, I would say only 3 people actually finished it. And so we knew that if we went more asynchronous, that we were going to have a lower completion rate, which we were not stoked about. So that's why I initially went as a cohort model, and that went great. Like the problem was it's just not scalable because we were offering one-on-one time for every single student. We had calls twice a week. It wasn't possible for us to be able to provide enough support per person. So
right, but I'm assuming I guess it was still an essential part of the journey where you get that quality feedback, and then once you understand, okay, what are we dealing with, then you can
Exactly. And we did that for 2.5 years before we actually switched. So we launched in early 2021, and it wasn't until basically end of last year that we swapped to being this monthly model that we have now.
So were you just bootstrapping from the get-go and just quit your job, and then, or did you kind of like, okay, just like you went full for it?
Yeah, so basically we did it part-time at our jobs and up until we were ready to launch, and then we quit and went full-time on Kickass UX for a few years. So we just like went all in. And like there definitely been times where it's been pretty lean, and that's what part of the reasons I've contracted on the side is just to keep things moving forward. And another reason why we have our design studio is also to keep our skills up, but also just keep money moving with the company. And so yeah, exactly. So but coming back around though, with the kind of the cohort based model, like when we got through that, it was like 2.5 years, and then we made the switch because what we were seeing is like scaling. But the other big problem for why we had to switch it up is a lot of people coming in didn't have the funds to move forward with us. And like, well, they did and they didn't. It's like the 2 big objections that we always saw was, one, like I don't have the time right now, or I will like 3 months from now or 6 months from now. And we only would launch twice a year. So that was a problem because we couldn't hit the timing right. And then the price point was also a problem for some people, where it was like we were charging less than other boot camps, especially for how much time you got with us and the quality of our program, especially compared to what you see on any of these other programs than you boot camps. But it was just, we didn't have a big enough name. And so we were like, okay, how can we fix this? Like where we take our time out of the equation and make it so it's a lot easier for people to join for a lot less money and they can learn on their own time. And so we moved to like being a fraction of the price we used to be. So for context, I think the last price we had when we were doing cohort-based model was like $5,500. And that was for like 6 to 7 months of our time with them, where you'd be with a group, you go through it all the way. And now how it works is you can buy for either $200 a month. You can go that way. You can buy for a quarter, which gets you, it's $500, or you can pay upfront for a year for $1,500. And so like you get a lot more time with a lot more of the content, and you still get time with us every 2 weeks, and we answer all questions and comments. But that way it's more scalable and much more affordable for most people.
Yeah. So I'm guessing the reaction was definitely positive on that.
Yeah. It's been very positive on that. Like I think, the people who need more handholding wouldn't be coming our way anyway. And so like so far it's been great. Like it was definitely the right call.
Nice. And in terms of maybe other decisions, was there any like reaction or feedback that surprised you guys? Or something you like ended up rolling back, or like being like, oh, actually.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about that. I don't know. Not off the top of my head. I think the things that we just always, every time we hear something from students, we just automatically start adding it. So like, oh, this thing didn't make sense. Oh, we go and fix it. Like we very much were following like a human-centered process in general across everything that we're doing. And so not that comes to mind, nothing that was surprising. I think the thing that is surprising in general when you're in UX and like, well, especially if you're a designer and you're trying to be a founder, the thing that you like, even though I didn't think I fell into this trap, I know I fell into this trap now looking back. There's this belief that if you build it, they will come. Like I will build this thing that's so awesome, that's so much better than everyone else. And then you think that people are going to come your way. And that's just not the case. So like the thing that I recommend to any and all people who want to be founders is you start with marketing first. So you build a following first and you give. Like you give for free forever, basically, where you're just giving all of your knowledge for free. You're building followers that way. And that way, like whenever you do have an ask, you've already banked so much in the bank that is like goodwill that some people are going to be willing to give you some back because you've provided so much value to them. And like we didn't do that. We started with building a product first, and then we built an audience. And like I would not do it that way. If I were to go back and change things, I would completely reverse the way that we did everything, as far as like I'd start with building an audience first and then build a product. It was nice not having to build the product, like that it was already done, but not great from like a marketing side of things. And so that is the one, I think, big mistake that we made. And we've never paid for ads, other than like we did in the very beginning for like 3 weeks, and we were like, this isn't for us, and we just went all organic. And so like, yeah, you have to figure out where your traffic's coming from first and foremost.
Yeah. So yeah, you also mentioned something about like just give, and then at some point when you think, I mean, not to treat them as like animals, but when you have like the fish in the hook, then and you're ready to like monetize, how do you avoid the trap of then realizing that they're just not willing to pay for it? So like, is because I'm also like working on another company, and we're kind of figuring out, do we want to already have a landing page with like a pricing and a checkout form, and see, are people actually going to click to pay versus, just giving for free and trying to grow like that audience, just like, WhatsApp, for instance, has millions and millions of users, but no like actual monetization method.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
So are you familiar with product-led growth? And actually, before I even finish that, I'm just making sure, when you're saying give, are you talking about from a product standpoint, or are you talking about from a individually standpoint?
I'm not sure I get your question, but what I'm saying is just give, like allow people to use your service for free. If that's how I understood it with give.
Okay.
Or you meant give as in like build.
What I mean is like as a person just as a person, like I am one of the co-founders of Kickass UX. I would like, basically what I meant by give is that like on social platforms, you go and write and like you give away the value of like, for example, we're an education platform. I teach, like a lot of what we teach is available for free. Like you can like basically see at least 60 to 70% of what we teach on our YouTube, but the rest of it is still like, under lock and key. If you pay for it, then you get more. And so what I mean by give is like, if you go back and look at I've been posting on LinkedIn now for 2 years, something like that, 1.5 years, 2 years. And like 90% of my posts. What's that? Sorry?
You've built quite.
Yeah, thanks. But yeah, like last like 2 years, I would say 95% of my posts are me providing value, right? I'm like educating on something. I'm not asking for anything. And so that's what I mean by give. And so like basically I'm giving away as much as possible so people can find me and they trust me. And then when I have an ask, when I'm like, hey, by the way, we have a new program coming out, we have a new thing coming out for you, then it's much more of like, I've already banked so much goodwill with people because I've been truly trying to give to the community, truly trying to help, that like when I do have an ask, people are more willing to say, yes, that sounds great. Like, or people who want to opt in will. So that's what I meant. And that's what I was asking about. So then with your company you're talking about, have you heard of product-led growth?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. So
maybe the idea, but just, yeah.
Sure.
I see a fly.
Yeah, I just got it.
There you go.
Yeah. Product-led growth is.
Where was Murphy?
Yeah, he bailed. Like product-led growth is a way of building a growth engine in your company. So there's sales-led growth, there's marketing-led growth, and product-led growth is through the product itself. And so it's like having a free trial or free something is a part of that. So people get value. And once you get them to value as fast as possible, like then they're more willing to pay for the thing when they realize how much value you offer. So I'd highly recommend reading a book by Wes Bush, all about product-led growth. And so like, it's awesome. So like, to answer your question, you definitely want to have a free trial. You don't want to give everything for free forever. Like you need to be able to obviously monetize. Otherwise you're not going to have a business for long. And
right. So what's that book called?
Give me a second. I'll tell you.
And also I noticed that we're running up against your next meeting. So we'll start wrapping up as well.
Yeah. I'll send you the link. So it's just called Product-Led Growth, How to Build a Product that Sells Itself, by Wes Bush. I can send you the link. But highly recommend looking into that. Like myself and Ludovic, we have gone through his, and he's like kind of doing it differently now, but basically like live calls, and we built Kickass UX, at least definitely parts of it with that in mind, like building like a free motion, like how do you get new people to come in? Like how can you provide them as much value as possible immediately? Like all that. So definitely recommend looking it up for your stuff. And for all UX designers, they should definitely learn product-led growth because it's all about like metrics. It's understanding the business, like how design, and then you have to translate it in your head. Like how can I, as a designer, support these metrics? How can I help things move forward so the company sees me as more than just someone who pushes pixels?
Yeah. Nice. Great. All right. Well, I think it's time to wrap up as well so that you can get ready for your next meeting.
Yeah.
But to everyone listening, I guess check out that book and also check out kickassux.com. Yeah. And then there's a bunch of free content there. And if you're ready to upgrade, I'm sure they can.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to share?
No. Other than like just in general, keep doing what you're doing, man. I think it's awesome. I love seeing people build what they're excited about, and I love seeing people provide free value to people. I think education is so important, and I'm stoked I like that you're doing that. I'm so thankful that you invited me to be here and spend some time with you, get to know you better. I think it's awesome. So yeah, I think that's my final word on that. Just like keep going, man.
Nice. Thanks, man. All right.
Yeah.
I'll see you. Thanks for your time.
That's good.
Thanks for listening to another episode of userexperience.org podcast. I hope you liked it. If you did, please feel free to share with your friends and family. Also, make sure to check out kickassux.com and userexperience.org for more cool content. And lastly, I've been working as a product designer at interface.ai, a platform that uses AI to help you improve the UX of your websites. So make sure to check that out as well.